Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hedin, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Mesa, Arizona. With me this week is Paul Trau, the managing partner at Retail Results, which is a consulting firm that specializes in the home furnishing and flooring industries. So what are we going to be talking about? Well, what's going on in the market? What's the state of the market? I've seen a lot of people coming into different Facebook groups I'm a part of, having the conversations of, hey, I need a job. Hey, I'm looking for work. Hey, I can't find anything. Is anybody hiring? And then I talk to other people and it's, man, I'm still busier than ever. Now, where is that at? What's it look like? Paul has been in the industry for a minute. He's worked for large companies doing sales and marketing. He's been through economic ups and downs. And so we're just going to talk about kind of his views of what we see going on with the economy right now and what it looks like. How do we prepare for a recession? How do we make it through? What kind of things do we need to do? And how can we make our company stand out when there's a ton of people vying for the opportunity, right? There's fewer opportunities and a ton of people want it. So how do we stand out? So that's the general consensus of what we're going to be talking about today. What is Floor Academy? Well, it's your weekly source for business talk in the flooring industry. I want to help people build an asset instead of owning a job. And so every week I'm here having conversations with professionals in the industry about what it looks like to run your business. There's tons of content and I am out of practice after not having recorded in like 2 weeks and I can't get a single thought out of my head right now, but hey, that's the show. And this is how we roll. We just kind of, we make things happen around here. So I want you to listen. You can find it on any major streaming app, YouTube. Make sure you check out the Facebook group where we're always having great conversations. And, what else? You can, if you want to help support the show, if it's doing anything for you, head over to patreon.com/Floor Academy. And even $5 a month goes a long way in helping me keep it going. And we got a couple sponsors around here, too, that help keep everything coming your way and getting you that info. So that's enough out of me because, look, no one's here to listen to me talk. It's the guests we're interested in. So, Paul Trau, who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate you inviting me on. I've done pretty much everything in the flooring industry, except actually make the product by hand. I grew up in the retail business. I worked for my father, which people always think that the son of the owner has it made, and what they don't realize is generally the son of the owner is the one that gets to do all the hard stuff. And when I was 25, he gifted me. Being the installation manager, managing about 25 crews. And for about 5 years, I thought my dad hated me. And then as I progressed in my career, I realized that what he was doing was preparing me for the rest of my career. I spent also 5 years as a professional flooring installer and specializing in the commercial business. And then from there, came up through Bruce Hardwood as their marketing manager, and then on various corporate jobs. The one position that I held that undoubtedly gave me the best view of what successful contractors and retailers had in common and what they did and did differently and what the unsuccessful ones struggled with. It wasn't so much our own personal experience because it's not really relevant. If the biggest business you ever worked in was $2 million, you're really not going to be relevant to someone doing 20, and vice versa. If you work for a $50 million contractor or a retailer, you really don't have much in common with the guy doing $1.5 million or $2 million. You may have been there, but it's been a long time. When I was with the Maxim Group, which owned Flooring America and some other franchises, what I got to do is I ran the franchise network, but that gave me behind-the-scenes looks at what these successful people did and how they weathered the tough times, because they had to do that to stay in business. You don't grow over 5, 10, 15, 20 years without going through different bouts of bad business. Some of it was economic, some of it was self-inflicted, and seeing how they prepared for both the tough times and the good times which is the value that I would bring, because seeing how the different successful people handle things allowed me to share that virally, if you will, with other dealers, and they benefited from it.
Yeah. So we had a interesting conversation setting all of this up, and essentially we're coming off of probably one of the best economic times ever. Like, it was just this really long decade stint of growth that was capped by one of the most awkward situations probably that we've had, where we shut everything down, essentially kept everybody trapped inside their homes. They couldn't do anything. And then we turned on the money printing press and said, oh, everyone's broke because we shut down the economy. Here, have some money. No one can go spend it anywhere. And they're all looking at their ugly houses because they actually had to spend time inside of them for once. And so the construction industry started booming to cap off this amazing, like, economic run. And as we were chatting, you were like, well, yeah, that all happened. And so all of this work got pulled forward in time. And so I think that's, I want to start there and walk that out for me of what this has kind of looked like, where you're saying we pulled all this work forward in time, and then how you see that affecting us as we move forward.
Sure, Kyle. The thing about being in business, regardless of what business you're in, is when times are good, you think it's never going to stop. And when times are bad, you think it's never going to stop. So sometimes you have to look outside your own four walls and commune, if you will, with other dealers that are of similar size to you, that you have a relationship with. We kind of had something that hasn't happened, at least in my lifetime, and because I'm probably twice as old as you, certainly didn't happen as yours. But we've had different recessions before. We've had slowdowns. This particular time, when we went through the pandemic with the shutdowns and what have you, as you said, people were forced inside their homes and they weren't able to travel, which was one of the biggest industries that was hit. So they took the travel funds, the experience funds, and they put them into their homes. And at that time, you will recall, mortgages were cheap, borrowing money was cheap, credit cards were cheap, and money was free. There was a lot of money that was put out into the marketplace, regardless of your income bracket. There was just a ton of money pumped into the economy, and homeowners decided, as you said, they were sitting there looking at their ugly floors and decided to replace them. And kitchen remodels went up. The paint business almost doubled during that period of time. And again, it was unique because it wasn't the natural replacement, repair, remodel timeline. It was compressed into this period of about 2.5 years, where we pulled business from 2 years, 3 years, 5 years forward that won't be replaced in the next 2 or 3 years. So we're going to see a natural slowdown of that just because we pulled a ton of business forward. And then on top of that, there are some recessionary pressures now, regardless of your political persuasion or whether you follow the markets or what the pundits say. My experience is anytime there's a chance that your business and your income is at risk, you have to act like that risk is imminent. You can't use wishful or hopeful thinking or your own opinion about whether you actually think something bad is going to happen, because you put yourself at risk if you're wrong. So one of the biggest challenges that we have right now, and I talk to a lot of dealers I do some pro bono work from people doing $750,000 up to 30 and 40 million. I don't do pro bono work at that level. I couldn't afford that. But they're starting to take a look at the things that they're going to have to do, and the good times that we've experienced really wasn't as a result of, for lack of a better phrase, business genius. And I'm not denigrating or demeaning anybody's success during this period of time, but there was just a ton of business that was thrown at us, and we all benefited from that. But that's starting to ebb. Well, now we've seen the mortgage rates pretty much double over the last 18 months. Whether you're in the new home market or not, that will affect us because that affects home turnover. People are either underemployed. Unemployment is really low. Pretty much anybody who wants a job right now has one. But you have underemployed people. You have the kind of silent economy where people are working 2 or 3 different gig economy jobs, which are always put under stress when disposable income gets tight. You have people that are fearfully employed. They're not, you have big companies that are laying off people thousands at a time. Now, you didn't bring me on here to say that the sky was falling, but
No,
there is but you and I, we talk to dealers all the time that they're seeing business slow down. And the surest sign of that, it's not scientific. When you see carpet installers in this environment saying, hey, I'm in the middle of Florida. Do you have any work? I'm in upstate, Minnesota. Do you have any work? Because so many carpet installers migrated over to hard surface because there's more money in it. It's easier on their bodies. You don't have to carry anything that weighs 800 pounds. So they stopped installing carpet. And finding good carpet installers has become, one of the big challenges. So when you take a look at what an independent business owner, and again, whether they're a retailer or a contractor, has to take a look at is what do I have to do now to prepare for less business over the next 12 to 18 months or longer. Now, the upside of that is if you do things to tighten your belt, to cut back on expenses now, and business stays strong for you or goes up, it hasn't cost you anything because you can always redeploy that capital. You can turn that right back on, whether it was advertising and marketing or people or what have you. But the opposite of that is not true. If you wait too late to start to make preparations, and we're really just talking now about on the financial side, but if you wait too late to make those cuts, any business, particularly the flooring business, it's like Monopoly. Once you run out of money, the game is over. I don't care how many hotels and motels and what have you have on the board. When you run out of money, that game is over. And from my point of view right now, if I had to make a suggestion based on the recessions of the 80s, of the 90s, the crash in 2008, would be to go through every line item of your expense that you're spending money on and saying, is this bringing me business? Is it saving me business or not? And if it's not doing one of those two, take a hard look at reducing those expenses.
I mean, I think that's good advice just in general. You should always be looking at your business and what's bringing you money and not. And look, this conversation, I don't want to scare people, right? That's not why we're here. Like you said, right? No. We're not trying to be Chicken Little, but I think this is just, if things are still good for you and it's still, you're cruising along and that train, you can't stop it, take it for all it's worth. I know that there's some people that are struggling right now, and I know there's people doing well. We're in a really weird spot right now, but I think one of the biggest things is that, we did have a really great run, but a lot of people, especially contractors, have a tendency to get a big check and they go and buy the big truck, or they buy the boat, or they buy the quad, or whatever toy they want at the minute. And then there's no money left. And so if things are still good for you and you haven't built up some kind of a war chest yet, I definitely think that's something you should be working on, and that you need to be going and, getting money put aside. And then you're looking at the business, and
no doubt about that.
And if things aren't going well, then cut, like you said, right? Start looking at what kind of expenses can we cut? Where can we bring things out? Is this bringing me business? Is it not? How do I, maybe find a different way to market for free, right? Where can I go and time or money? Those are the two things you have. You can buy anything you want with money, and your time is valuable. But when you don't have any money, all you got is time, and you're going to have to invest it, right? And so if you got to, I think people are afraid to go hit the concrete still. I was having a great conversation with a gentleman at Coverings, and he was like, he used to go to the permit office when he first started out, and he would see who's pulling the permits, and then he would go to every single address and try and find the contractor and start talking to them about what they needed for it. Genius, right? It's built in. They're going to do work. They're at the beginning stages because they just pulled the permit, So if you can't find work, I mean, there's an idea for you. Drive around, find a construction site, get up off your butt. Stop. Look, you going on Facebook and coming in like a local community group to Arizona or Florida. Anybody got any work? Man, if you don't have work and you're in that local community, they probably don't have a lot either. You got to find people that either have it or you got to go create it. But asking on Facebook, probably not the best thing in my opinion right now.
Well, I'm not an expert on social media, but I understand its impact and its ability to awareness. Wouldn't say to stop doing that, because a lot of that peer-to-peer marketing is essentially free, unless you're buying ads and what have you. But you made a perfect point about the things that we did when we started our business, that we stopped doing because we found other sources of income that maybe were bigger gold mines, if you will, and we stopped digging in the smaller ones because, it takes as much time to do a small deal a lot of times as it does to do a big one. So when there's a lot of business out there, you focus on those because those are going to give you the best return. But when even if it's just the chance that business is going to go down, you start looking at ways that you used to do things, of how you built your original business to go after. In addition to that, start looking at things that you either decided weren't really in your wheelhouse or hard, or maybe you tried a few times and it cost you money, because nothing will stop a retailer or a contractor from doing a particular thing more than them losing money on it a couple of times. And then we don't necessarily, and when I say they, me, we don't necessarily look and say, okay, well, how come I had a problem? How come I lost money? And ceramic tile is a good example. Not suggesting people run out and start doing ceramic tile if you're not doing it now. I'm just using it as an example. But if everybody who ever had a problem on a ceramic tile job in their early career, there would be nobody doing ceramic tile at all today, because everybody has problems with that, whether it's estimating it or doing the prep work or the installation work. Learning how to do epoxy grout for the very first time and finding out that's not the easy way to do it that they say in the instructions. Towels and poof, it's beautiful. But there are other ways to look at business. From a retailer standpoint, for the last 3 downturns, we suggested that people go back and solicit remodelers. I mean, this is a combination of phone calls. You can now do it on Facebook pages, but nothing works as well as face-to-face. You have remodelers, while the amount of work has gone down, the people who are out there hustling for the work that's still there have an opportunity to get it, because you have other people who are pulling in their horns. They become completely risk averse, and they stop doing the things that they did with their business. I mean, if you take a look at working for remodeling contractors, the restoration business is, without a doubt, if anybody who's listening isn't involved in restoration, it is the most recession-proof thing or part of the business, because 365 days a year, floods happen, fires happen, people burn their kitchens up, they have toilet leaks, and there's always going to be that. Working with realtors, even though the home sales, while it's a little bit jagged right now, home sales are still strong. Yes. Realtors are one of the best referral generators in the market, because they're catching people at a time when they're either moving out or moving in. They're either prepping their home to show, or they've moved in and they said, hate the colors, hate this, hate that. We want something new. And anything but a starter home, they're carrying around additional equity that they got over their equity growth in the last few years. So they're looking at upgrading the interior of their house. There's things that you can do that maybe you weren't doing during a normal course of business because you were so busy, that you really need to take a look at. And depending on the size of your organization, you have people who are sitting around waiting on the phone to ring, making outbound calls, taking a look and seeing what they can, where they can find pockets of work to develop relationships when things are tough. And, it's not just remodelers. It's just not realtors. It's just not restoration. There are about a half a dozen other areas that they can explore. but you want to do that now. You don't want to wait until the
Mm-hmm.
tide goes completely out to start looking at A, examining your expenses, and B, taking a look at what you need to be doing to supplement the revenue. And if the business doesn't go away, that's fantastic. You can make the choice about what segments you keep. In the contracting, in the installer or contractor world, one of the best places to build back the revenue is repair work.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is because if people aren't buying new flooring and they aren't buying new homes and they aren't moving, they're looking at having their hardwood refinished, hardwood repaired, their LVP, LVT repaired, carpet repaired, new carpet just on steps, maybe things that we wouldn't necessarily go after in the really great times. But these are things that people start to look at. I mean, right now, car repair businesses are through the roof because interest rates and new car prices are so high that the used car market has gone crazy.
Yeah.
But the auto maintenance side and the auto parts side has skyrocketed again because people are keeping their cars longer and they're repairing what they have. And the parallel to that in our business, even on the retail side, maybe where you didn't do repairs before, it's a way not just to generate income, but it's a way to keep your people working, keep your people liquid, keep them funded, keep them working for you. Plus, it's a way to build a customer base in a downtime because when things come back, they remember who helped them.
Well, you're talking about diversifying, which I think is great advice because, look, you can. We've talked that, there's the saying like the riches are in the niches, and I have no problem with people niching into something and being the expert and being really good at it. However, like you said, things slow down. There's not as much that pool goes away. Okay, so when things are good, obviously the pool gets bigger and there's tons of money going around, and so now you can key in and say like, I only want to do this kind of stuff, and you're saying look at repair work or look at broadening what you do, and can you start offering another surface? So if you are a hard surface guy but you were only doing laminate, LVP, and hardwood, can you get into tile? Can you get into doing sand and finish solid hardwood instead of engineered? Can
If
you
you're
go
a
learn
carpet installer, if you're a carpet installer looking for carpet work,
yeah,
learn how to install a hard surface. Whatever you don't have work for, expand where the work is.
And then I love you're right about restoration. There's always insurance work, whether you want it or not, and you think it's cheap. Look, you want to. I'm against staying busy just to stay busy because that's not how you be profitable. But can you manage a workflow? Can you examine your business? Can you look at efficiency and go work for one of these companies and find a way to make it work? Right. I think that's going to be the key, is you have to evolve and adapt. And as things get better or worse, you can always come back around and adjust back to the old business model that worked. Right. But essentially, don't run your business into the ground, I think is what Paul and I are both trying to tell you to do. And you're going to, if you want to plant your flag on the hill and say, this is the business I built and what I do, and you're going to die on that hill, that's really, really foolish. Businesses are a living entity, and they change just like you and I. We grow and evolve, and we have to be fluid. So besides kind of looking at the way things are shifting, what we can do, we're diversifying, what other things are we needing to look at in this space to just assess where we move or how we move?
Well, and so many retailers at a certain level and contractors, when we take a look at their business, it's really about lifestyle generation and protection, and the majority of the revenue at some point flows to the owner, and that's something that they look to protect. But we have to go a step further, because if you want to sustain your business in a slowing environment, you have to protect your best people too, because if they can't make a living where you're at because as you said, you've narrowed your niche, which is a good thing when business is really good because you want to do the most of what you're good at that you make the most of.
Mm-hmm.
But when that starts to dry up, you have to broaden it out a little bit, and we have to re-engage, as you started off by saying, with the things that maybe we did to get us started, to make it happen. Get out of the office, to make the face-to-face, belly-to-belly calls, and generate and go after the work that's there, because so many dealers, particularly retailers, they pull their horns in. They stop advertising. They stop doing the local events. They stop doing things in the community that actually is what has built their business. And just because you may have been in business for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you were hungry when you started. You have to do those things sometimes to not be hungry when you finish. And I have heard 1,000 times from individual salespeople, installers, owners, yeah, we used to do that, but it was a pain in the butt. We don't do it anymore. Okay, well, I get that. I mean, I honestly do.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to that revenue tide going out, you want to stay working. Classic example, 15 years ago, I heard a carpet installer who basically focused on new homes say, I'm not going to take anything less with my crew than 450 yards a day, because that's the way I built my crew. I have to make so much money. And I respected that. Built a crew up, could do 450 yards non-occupied a day, could make a lot of money. Then when the housing market slowed down, the people he worked for took him seriously and said, well, we don't have any work for you. So, well, I see guys carrying it out all the time. I said, well, you said you weren't going to take anything less than 450. So we're giving guys 2 150 jobs or 2 200. And yeah, it's a pain. You have to set up, knock down, drive, all of that. But I would rather be working and earning than sitting at home on my high horse saying that I'm worth more than that. Because if you're worth more than that, you're worth more than zero, which, you've got to put your assets to work.
Well, I think this comes into, we're big on knowing your numbers around here on Floor Academy.
No question.
And I go to the website, you can download the spreadsheet in the file section. And if you're a small, one-man band or couple guy operation, the spreadsheet works really well for knowing what it's going to cost you to operate your business every day. And, if you want to buy a truck every 5 years and, you put that expense in and it tells you how much it's going to cost you per day and it adds it all up. And now you come out with $1,000 or $800 or whatever it's going to be. Can you make less profit right now? Can you take the truck and instead of wanting to replace it every 5 years, it's every 7 years? Can the trailer get replaced every 10 years instead of every 5? Can you get a slightly smaller tool budget to work with and buy new tools every year, right? You could start, when you know the numbers and how to manipulate them around, then now your rate goes down as you extend the service life of something. And you know, instead of saying, I think I had it in there that I wanted the company to make $50,000 in profit every year, which is really, really aggressive. Can I make 25 and be happy? As long as, if I can take my salary down from 100 to 80 and the company makes a profit of, 25 instead of 50, I'm still doing good. Like I'm living. I don't have to cut back on too much stuff. There might be less money to put into savings for now, but I can keep my lifestyle where it's at, or maybe I find some bills to reduce. But when you know the numbers, now we can adjust things, right? And so that guy, he wanted 450 yards a day, and he wanted all these guys to go bang out one big job. Well, okay, what if he gets 3 150s and they all have to go to a separate house? Can it work? Were they busy? Did you keep them employed? Can you lower the number a little bit and still be efficient? And there's just slightly less profit, right? It's when you know what you're working with and how to manipulate the numbers, which business to me is at least a language of numbers. Is there other stuff involved? Yes. But at the end of the day, you're generally running a business so you can make money. So we have to know how the money works. Now we have a lot more options available to us so that we can continue to move forward and be successful. Now I've lost the thought that I've thought of it like 3 times and I haven't written it down. But go ahead real quick, and then
I'm sure it'll come back to you.
Sure.
You're a smart guy, but as humans, we look as we can to get the most for the least. I mean, that's the way the economy is driven. That's how we have the society we have. We're looking to get the most for the least, whether it's money or effort or energy, whatever it is. It's how we're trained as a society. But there reaches a point where we have to do more to make the same amount, or sometimes do more to make less, just to stay in business. And my dad, who was the toughest boss I've ever worked for by a factor of 10, because I never had to have Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner with any of my other bosses. So there is a dynamic there that you can't escape. But he said, we'd rather have a pain in the butt than a pain in the bank. And I really didn't understand that until 2007 came along, and partners in a retail with 7 stores in Florida in the mattress business, and went down there. We were killing it for the first 6 months, and then Lehman Brothers went down and what have you, and we were doing our profit and loss statement projections on an Etch-a-Sketch. I mean, every day you got up and said, okay, well, we're doing less, we're doing less, we're doing less, we're doing less. So, well, what do we need to do? So, well, we need to cut overhead, which means we need to find the lowest producing stores, the lowest producing salespeople, and we have to cut them, because if we don't, they're going to drag us down. We don't have a choice. Well, there comes a time where if you wait too late, all the cutting in the world, you wind up cutting precious revenue that you can't replace anywhere else. And if I had to give any advice from experience, and again, watching other successful people, how they weathered the storm, it's a trite cliche, but they did whatever they had to do. They made the really hard decisions that they didn't want to have to make, but they made them at the time that they made them to save their company. They call it the lifeboat syndrome. If you have 50 people in a lifeboat that can only hold 30, you keep all 50 and drown everybody, or do you throw 20 people overboard and save 30? And while that may seem like a very extreme example, that is what every business owner is faced when the specter of a mild to moderate, maybe even drastic reduction in business comes about. But you can't wait till everybody's going under to start throwing people off. And again, that's a very coarse way of putting it.
Yes.
But everybody gets that image. If you have a lifeboat built for 30 and 50 will sink it, what do you do if you're the captain? You can't wait till the gunwales are below the water and everybody's treading. And it is. It's very difficult. And again, this is not you didn't want to have a conversation about gloom and doom, but this is about preparation.
This is practical. This is real. I'm gonna interrupt us for just a minute, and I gotta get a little sponsors in here, and then we'll come back and we'll keep going down this vein because I have some thoughts on it. So, real quick. GoBoard is engineered for durability, yet up to 80% lighter than cement boards. Easy to cut and handle. Easy to cut and handle. It can be cut on site where it's installed using a basic utility knife without crumbling or disintegrating. Best of all, the waterproofing is built in. GoBoard half-inch thick 48 by 64-inch panels are now available. Ask your supplier to bring it in for you. Visit www.jm.com/GoBoard for more information. I think I missed a W there. That's okay. You guys know how to use the internet by now. It's 2023. If you don't, reach out. I'll give you lessons, but we'll get there pretty quick. Introducing the ultimate solution for flooring contractors, a cloud-based virtual estimating software. Get accurate and detailed estimates in minutes without ever leaving the job site or even the office. With features like real-time collaboration, project management tools, and automatic material calculations, you'll have the information you need to close deals faster and more efficiently than ever before. Try today and experience the future of flooring estimating. Check out the link in the show notes to demo the program or visit estimates.flooracademypod.com. Okay, Paul. We're chatting and we're talking about kind of gloomy and doomy stuff. But that's not really where we're going. It's still business basics. It's how to make sure you survive. And so we were talking about cutting people, and that's, no one wants to fire people. I think a lot of, when you bring on an employee, a lot of people feel a responsibility to take care of them.
Absolutely.
There's, you're promising someone a way to provide for their family or themselves, and that's a serious responsibility. And so when things get hard, it's hard to, you don't want to let people go because you promised them something. But here's the thing. My buddy Trask, he jokes that the family business is the golden goose, and they will do anything to protect the golden goose. And I think that's really what it is that smaller contractors look at it as they own the business and the business is them, which is, when you own a job, yeah, it's kind of true. But here's the thing. The business, if you did it properly and you went and got your LLC and all that, is an entity. And it's living, breathing, it ebbs and flows. And it's above you. Right? It has to exist. You're a part of it in the company. You're an employee of it. So if the business is struggling and you don't go and take care of it, and you're not making the decisions to make sure it survives, then yes, it's this lifeboat scenario where there's 50 people in it and it only holds 30, and you're sinking your ship on purpose. Whereas if you were to cut some, sadly, dead weight, it's not fun. It's not pretty, but welcome to owning a business. It's hard and really crappy sometimes. So you got to cut some dead weight to make sure the ship survives, so that on the opposite side, there's going to be a company there to bring that person back, hopefully, and give them employment. And that's what I want to talk about was, there's obviously less business when there's a downturn. And so if you can hold your revenue on and keep it where it's at, and there's less opportunity on the opposite side of a downturn, you should actually see growth and a pickup in market share because you maintained with less. So when there's more leads coming in, you should be able to grow. But on that same note, if you can increase revenue somehow, which would be amazing, then you definitely gained market share. But a lot of people, they look to cut expenses, and the first thing they do is they're like, oh, marketing's got to go. There's less leads, and you're going to cut your marketing? That doesn't make sense. So what are your kind of thoughts on being able to maintain, grow, keep that, when there's less leads, how do we keep the message out there to be able to be the one that says, hey, look at me, I'm right, I'm still here, I'm doing this, and I need you to help me, help you, help me.
Well, first of all, cutting expenses is not just something you do in preparation for tough times. Mm-hmm. If you're the owner of a business, regardless whether you're a retailer or a contractor or what have you, you have to understand what the role of a CEO is in a public company. And you have to treat your company like a public company. I'll give you an example. Regardless of all the different responsibilities that a CEO has in a public company, and by public company, obviously traded on one of the stock exchanges, that type of thing, the number one job of a chief executive officer is to maximize shareholder wealth, period. End of discussion. It's not about being a good corporate citizen. It's not about providing jobs. It's not about taking care of the community. That's part of it. But their number one job, what they're measured on, what they're paid on, what allows them for the board to renew their contracts over and over and over again, is they maximize shareholder wealth. The people who put their money into the stock of a company, and while that doesn't directly flow to the company, it does affect the value of the company. They expect to get a return from that. The cuts that you're seeing now at the corporate level, and you see, this one lays off 1,400, that one lays off 1,900, this one lays off. One of the things that's coming from is that they took a look at the trajectory of the growth over the last 3 years, and they kept staffing up for that. They kept expanding that. Amazon, cut contracts on about $50 billion worth of buildings because they said, okay, if business keeps going up, we're going to have more distribution centers, more people, and what have you. And they looked, and that trajectory flattened out, and they said, okay, the CEO goes to the CFO and says, we have to cut back. Yes, we had all these great plans, and we told the street we're going to do this. But if you don't do things to mitigate a loss to the shareholders, they'll fire the CEO. Well, you're the CEO of your own business. You are generally the primary shareholder in your own business. So you have yourself on both sides. You say, I need to do what I need to do to preserve wealth, to preserve capital. That is when you start taking a look at what can we reduce, both on the business side and the personal side. You may have, during that trajectory, as you said, bought a new boat, whatever it is, that's very personal. But if you have to prepare for the chance that trajectory we've been on since 2020 isn't necessarily going to be there, can't carry that increased expense. So as an individual business owner, your responsibility to your shareholder is to maximize or preserve the value of your company, which causes you to have to make tough decisions. I mean, the CEOs don't sit back and they lose sleep. The ones with hearts, and that's most of them, they lose sleep when they have to make big cuts, except for the guy that fired 80,000 people over a Zoom call. That didn't go well. But no. It's not just about cutting. It's about taking a look and saying, okay, how do we retrench, focus our assets and our resources on getting the customers? How do we add, if it's going after different channels? Take a look at what you did when you very first started the company and say, what did I do to grow my business? What did I stop doing because I didn't have to do it anymore? Sometimes you have to go back to that, to the basics of what you did to build your business, whether it was going to networking meetings, going to whether you're in the remodeling business or the homeowners business or whatever it is, the local realtor groups. Of all the things, that's one of the easiest things to do is, it's not easy it's not easy to start, but it's going after realtors, which is nothing more than courting their business before they have it. But regardless of how many houses get sold, those realtors are still referring to contractors or retailers. And if you're their person, you're still going to get that business. It's about opening back up maybe the channels that you narrowed down to focus, like you said, on a narrower niche. But your responsibility is to the people that you can keep. Because if they struggle because we waited too long to make a move, they have to make the same decision for their own personal wealth and household, whether they stay or not, because nobody can stay and not make money just because they've been there a long time.
Yeah. Well, so I like that you pointed out we're the CEO of our company and you're running a business. And I think a lot of times people look at it as, I'm just a flooring installer. I'm just a flooring retailer. And you're talking about looking at it as I'm a Fortune 500 company. Like I have to, if you want to play this game properly, if you have to operate like the big guys do, you can't think of it as I'm just a small business. The reason that company is no longer a small business, and I've said this before on the show, is because they put systems and processes in place and they operated like they were a big boy. You can't sit here playing in the sandbox for your entire life and expect to be able to become the entire playground. It's just not going to happen. And so you're talking about CEOs are having to look at forecasting. And I know one business right now that's in one of the mastermind groups that we do that's forecasting. And they are a business doing under $1 million a year, but they are forecasting out what it looks like in 3 months of, how many sales do we need? What are we going to do? When does the money run out? They know how much money's in the bank account, all these upcoming expenses, and they're doing a really nice job of having things in place to run a high level business so that as they scale, they know exactly what it looks like to have people in place and where the money has to come from and what kind of jobs need to be sold. And, do we need to focus on getting some quick little ones to get some cash in, or can we or do we have a bunch of little ones and we can go look for that big project that might take a little bit longer, but it's going to have the bigger payday? And I don't think there's a lot of companies doing that. And when you're talking about you're doing too much too late, right? Oh shoot, I'm really in it. Now I got to let everybody go and hope I survive. That's probably why, because you have no idea what's going on in your company.
Or even worse, even harder. You have to go home and take your daughter out of travel soccer or take your son out of travel lacrosse. Those things, whether that's what you have to do, there are things that come home that you'll wind up having to do. And that's a tough thing. But to put it more on a positive side, there's a lot of dealers that are good at what they're good at. We're all blessed with that. We're really good at what we're good at, and we're good at what we're not, at what we know. But particularly in a male-dominated environment, which certainly the contractor world is still. I know
there are many amazing women, but
there, thank goodness. There's growth there, thank goodness. But it's still male dominant, and in the retail business too. And one of the things that as a male thing is we don't ask for help. And that's a bad thing, because if you don't know how to forecast, or you don't know what you should be doing to prepare. And again, if a downturn doesn't happen, you haven't cost yourself anything. You really haven't. If anything, what you've done is you've added some extra cash because you trimmed expenses. And expenses always creep up in good times. Sometimes they leap up. You look around and you say, "My God, where'd all these people come from?" And then again, moving it down too slowly. But you have to find yourself, for a lack of a better word, Kyle, a mentor in the business that it doesn't feel like you're a threat or a competitor to the group. And Facebook, as much as we love it, hate it, is a great place to find help. Now, whether you ask it in a general forum or not, then it's answered by a bunch of people that don't know what they're talking about, but they're telling you what they think. That's not necessarily a positive thing. But I've developed relationships offline, if you will, with mentors. Now, I'm 67 years old. You would think at 67 you wouldn't be looking for mentors, and that's absolutely not true. Because I want to make sure that I remain relevant, because so many people say, well, this is what we did 20 years ago. Oh, okay, but things have changed. There are things that you did 20 years ago that you still should be doing, like always examining your expenses, who your customers are, and that type of thing. But you can develop offline relationships with people that you can ask questions of, who, and generally, I would look for somebody that's a little bit bigger than you and a little bit older in business, not necessarily their age, but their business is older, because nobody has a 10-year business that didn't have to go through tough times. Nobody has a 20-year business that didn't have to go through tough times. I mean, it's not like everybody else struggled, but they just were sailing along above the fray. So develop that type of relationship with people who have been there. And there are people out there that will help. I accidentally developed a relationship with one of the coaches for the New York Yankees, of all things.
Okay.
And he's not an on the field coach, but he's one of the motivational, psychological. But he's an active coach. I mean, he's not just somebody that did it one time. And I'll ask him questions, and he'll just come right off it and say, "Okay, well, you're maybe not thinking about this correctly. Maybe give this a try. Do this, do that, and see how that works." Because we're always in love with our own ideas. But social media allows us to develop relationships that we wouldn't necessarily be able to do, because you're generally not going to go to your competition and get relevant, valid, information. Retailers have an advantage because they can join franchises or buying groups or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest advantage to that is the viral sharing of positive knowledge. The only thing that I would make sure of is that as you're discussing things to do to change, build, grow, save your company, is make sure that the people who are giving your advice are actually using it. They're not just giving you their opinions, because if you challenge someone and say, yeah, okay, that sounds like a great idea, but are you really doing that? And you'd be surprised how many times somebody will say early in a relationship, they'll say, well, we did it, we stopped, but you ought to do it. Okay, well, that's of no value to me. But developing a network of people that you can rely on. And I'll give you my example of, I fell into this relationship accident. I replied to a post, and it went from there.
I mean, that's how you ended up here.
Well, you know what? Fair enough. Well, you have to evaluate whether this relationship is worth it or not. But I won't use the name. But there is one of the largest installation companies in the country, and they service one of the biggest boxes in the country. And I have been, and I am close to a couple of senior executives in those companies, and will not share anything out of school here and what have you. But I have seen the things that they have had to do to preserve their business. And one of those things is preserve capital, because when you do business with clients, if you're broke, you can't service them. You just can't. You can't provide the level of service that you need to preserve the better customers. You're out of money. If you just, and there's 1,000 forks to that comment, but developing it doesn't have to be a huge network, but I wouldn't have just one. Three or four people can get on the phone and say, okay, when the last time that this is, what should I be doing? And tell them the truth. Don't call for help and then paint a rosy picture, because that won't help you.
You gotta get vulnerable. You gotta be willing to open up to people and really expose yourself and be real. I wasn't looking for a plug for the mastermind groups that I do, but this is it ties in. I mean, that's what we're doing, is I'm putting 5 people into groups, and they're the longest running group has been meeting for 1.5 years, and a couple people have come in, a couple people have gone out, but some of the members have been there the entire time, and they all know their businesses very intimately, and they share the ups and the downs and the wins and the losses and the struggles and the mistakes. And it's what I've realized is people need business therapy, essentially. Like, you need a safe place to go and really put it all out there.
There's no question about that. That's a great way to put it.
The amazing thing is, you're saying that, you people need to go and get these mentors, but mentors come in weird places. And I've noticed that, there's companies in there that are doing under 500,000, and there's somebody that's doing a couple million. And as much as the $500,000 guy can learn from the couple million guy and say, okay, I got to put this in place, and I can do this, and then I can start scaling and growing and run more efficiently, and I got to get software and da 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 da. The $2 million company forgets what it's like to be scrappy and have to go out there and, start hitting the concrete to drum up jobs, because they just have such a large marketing budget. They just throw money and jobs come their way. So the mentorship goes.
Said, how did you survive? When 2007 hit, what did you do to allow yourself to be able to stay in business and live to fight another day? How'd you make it to 2010?
Yeah, well, and that's it goes, but the mentoring goes both ways sometimes, right? Like, just because you're a smaller business doesn't mean you don't have value to add to a conversation amongst $100 million businesses. And you're at a different scale, but sometimes that scale, you get lost in it, and you have to be able to step back and look at it. When you can have the objective 30,000 foot view on somebody else's business, you have a different look at it than they do, because they're caught in the moment. And a lot of times we're not. And I think that's, this goes back to when do you pull the trigger to do certain things? When you're, it's the comment that I usually use is, and it works great in the flooring industry, is, installers have a 12-inch view of their business because they're always down installing. When do you ever get to step back and get a 30,000 foot view? So if you can't find a way to work on your business and step back from it,
really about the time your knees start to hurt and you say, how can I build my career where I don't have to spend all my time doing this?
It's too late. It's too late.
I'll give two examples quickly, and they're relevant to this conversation. When first of all, social media and some things that are going on in the flooring business in general have created some environments for this mentorship, which absolutely blows my mind. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you're aware of this example. There's a retailer in Ohio that's grown his business from 0 to 200 million. Now, You would think that all that he would want to do is brag about how he got there and what have you.
Nope.
I had the good fortune to spend a day with him a couple of years ago, and showed me every facet and aspect of his business. And he's getting ready to take a second group of people up there, I don't know, 40 or 50 people that are going to spend 2 days with him, and he's going to show them how his business works. Now, the upside of that is he can tell you how he got there at every level, which is relevant to the $2 million dealer or the $500,000 dealer or the $5 million dealer.
Yep.
What he's not going to do is tell you how to sweep your account of all your cash and invest it in overseas markets so you can get 4 basis points, on your cash, because people aren't going to have that kind of cash to do. What are you going to do with the $815 that you might have in a float in your checking account before you get paid? Mm-hmm. But it's that kind of mentorship that's available. Yeah, he's not making any money on it. I've seen what they're paying. I mean, that's just probably covering lunch and materials and what have you. It's you go where you can find it. And certainly the organizations that are out there, whether it's the CFI or the Tile Council or the WFCA or any one of the number of I go back to the 90s where Jim Walker was telling carpet installers to become certified to add value so they could charge more. And everybody was going, that's not that, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. And he was preaching, in the forest way back then. But then the people who became CFI certified found out that they could be in more demand, that they could make more money. And they did the things, they invested the time in themselves so they could become of more value. And when we're in an environment like we're in now, you do what you have to do to keep your head above water till you can get and wait till the business comes back. And you have to throw pride out the window when it comes to it.
I think that's the toughest part is I work so hard. I built this. I don't want to go backwards. And look, you want to eat, or do you want to, once again, like if you're going to go stand on that hill with that flag and plant it and die on it over something stupid that's not what my business is anymore. You want to eat, you want to survive. You have to evolve and adapt, right? Look, I have options. Have things slowed in Phoenix? Yeah, they sure have. But when I first started out, I know the owner of a property management company. And like, if I wasn't working on flooring, I can call him and say, hey man, what do you got? Right. And he might send me out and somebody's flat roof needs leaves cleaned off of it, or, a gate's broken, and I can go play handyman any day of the week. All I got to do is make a phone call.
Yep.
Have I done it yet? No, because there's some money and there's a savings, but how far do I want to dwindle that? How far do I want to say, like, I can only do this, right? So at any minute, like, I can make that phone call and say, this isn't ideal, but I'm going to make sure that you talked about having to take stuff away from the kids. I don't want to take the swim team away from my son. I don't want to take my daughter out of swim lessons. My wife wants to be able to go to the gym and have the trainer. And is some of that lifestyle inflation stuff? Sure. But I can find a way to keep that. I don't have to start there. There's other things that we can look at and adjust, and suck it up, buttercup. Like, go do some stuff you hate and dislike and get by, otherwise. Well,
there's some psychological and emotional benefits to that. Don't look at it like you're having to go down, to go backwards. You look at it, for one thing, if you stay busy, your emotional and mental state is going to be much more positive than if you're sitting at home, waiting on the phone to ring or a check to come in. I can speak from personal experience about that. I've had some guys drag me out of my office before and say, "All right, get involved in this. It's not what you would normally go after and what have you, but it's going to be revenue generating. And when we're done, you will have established contacts that you didn't have before, or you've reestablished contacts that you had and then dropped. You'll come out of it better than if you just sat at home waiting on the tide to come back in." And that's a very real dynamic. I didn't grow up a woman, so I can't speak to that. But from a man's standpoint, I can tell you that there's nothing more demoralizing than feeling like you're not able to provide for your business or your family or your employees or what have you. And that goes back to those really tough decisions. And one of the toughest life lessons I ever learned is avoiding the pain, which was temporary, of tough decisions, and wound up suffering the consequence of not making those tough decisions. And hopefully, even if one person hears this today, that they say, okay, well, I've got some things that I know I've needed to do, but I put off and I had to do because, I'm wishful thinking and what have you. CEOs can't wishful think. Those are the ones that wind up on the unemployment line. Those are the ones that get bounced out of jobs. And you're the CEO of your own company, so you've got to make those tough decisions and determine who and what is the most important to preserve. How do I do that? And then start today. It's not complicated, but it's not easy.
I love it. That's great advice. I also like that, you took the positive and put it out there, and it comes back to, you don't know where an opportunity is going to come from. If you don't put yourself out there to even expose yourself to the opportunity, then nothing's ever going to happen. And so you got to miss more shots than you're ever going to make. But if you're not taking the shots, you can't make any. So I think that's where we wrap it up, folks. That's the key here is,
well, the last thing I'll say is,
go ahead.
I had a buddy of mine give me advice in 2009. He said, "How's it going?" I said, "Business is terrible. We're having problems." He said, "Well, what are you doing about it?" He says, "Well, we're just waiting it out." He goes, "How's that working?" I said, "It's not." He said, "Well, just remember, FedEx doesn't deliver business. So you've got to go out and get it. So, don't just sit there and wait on it, because there's things that you can do that will help you not just survive, but thrive."
Yes. Perfect. That's like, we're going to leave it there, folks. That's it. Get up, go solve your own problem. You control your destiny. You can go and create what you want. Do you have to shift? Do you have to offer services you currently may not? Will you have to do a project that maybe you don't want to do? Could be, but there's work out there, and you're going to be able to survive. Go ahead.
Kyle, I didn't come on here to pitch anything, but I told you that I did pro bono work for smaller or younger companies. Have you? And if anybody has, they want to ping me with anything, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook. You've got my contact information, and it won't cost them a dime.
There you go, folks. Here's you looking to find mentors. Here's the thing that it's beautiful. This is what I found in this industry is, the minute I started asking questions, people will gladly answer them. I've never had a problem going and just, "Hey, can you teach me about this? Can you do this?" People are willingly like opening themselves up and doing it. But the thing I've learned about mentorships is, you can ask once, you can ask twice, you can maybe even ask a third time. But if you're not doing what they're telling you to do and you're not putting in the work, you're going to get cut off really, really quick. So if someone is helping you, you have to actually go do what they're telling you to do, or they're going to cut you off because they're not getting anything out of the investment. The best thing that, if someone's mentoring you for free, they just want to see you succeed, and they will be so happy about it, because that's all they wanted. They didn't want money. They're not worried about the time. They just want to see you succeed. And if you're not going to put in the work to succeed, they're going to cut you off, and they're not going to do it anymore. And you're going to go through 5-10 people, and then it's going to get known that they just waste your time. Like they don't do anything. So Paul has a great offer, but if you're going to call him, you better be ready to go do something hard. It's
Well, I won't give you my opinions. I'll give you my experienced observations about how other people have done it that are successful, because that's more important than anything I could tell you that I've done.
well, you not that we're repping Broadloom here, but we were talking about Jason Goldberg earlier, and he runs an amazing business. Jason said, you got to do the work. You don't build a $200 million company and have the ambition to grow it to $1 billion without doing work. Life's hard. You got to go do something about it. So I think things are not easy for everyone right now, but there's probably a lot of people sitting on the couch crying about it instead of getting up and getting after it. I don't care what you got to do. Go paint.
Those are the ones that the tide always takes out when it goes. So, you can't save the world. You can only save people that want to be.
Very true. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you, Paul, for joining us. Once again, head on over to flooracademypod.com. Go to the shop, pick up a shirt. It's warm now, so now you need shirts. Get a Floor Academy shirt. Help the show out. Look good on your job site. There's the. I don't think I made the shirt. If you want a shirt, I can take the "Profit is not a dirty word" hoodie and turn it into a shirt, and then you can sport that, out and about as you do it. Don't wear it to a client's house though. Wear it out to when you're hanging out with other business friends, and let them know that profit's not a dirty word. I think sometimes small business owners are scared to make money, and hey, it's okay. Go to the YouTube channel, subscribe over there, subscribe on some streaming platform for me, iTunes, or not iTunes. What is it? Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Look, I can't do any of this stuff right now. This is horrible. And, leave a review for me. That would be the best thing you can do. So I'm going to close this out with some quick words from Tice here, and then I will read a review that has been left. And if you leave a review, I will read it on the show. When will the highly anticipated new season of Tice TV from the International Surface Events be streaming in 2023? It has been since April, but this April, coming to Tice is the premiere of the Spring Product Celebration Series. This season will deep dive into products and services from across the flooring, stone, and tile industries, featuring impressive brands such as Shaw, One Floor, Laser Products, and more. Plus, exciting celebrity news. The new season is being hosted by the iconic Lisbeth Calandrino, who's been captivating the industry and her audiences with eye-opening points, practical tips, and engaging personal stories through her industry experiences, books, and motivational speaking. Discover more at ticetv.com and follow Tice TV on Facebook for live airing alerts. All right. One review. We got Trent in Nashville. I'm a sand and finish guy in Nashville, and I've become a regular listener. Great job on the podcast, Kyle. That recent episode with the wives was brutal. It's not so recent anymore, but if you go listen to the 100th episode, I definitely get run over by a bus and dragged behind it for about an hour as my wife talks with two other amazing women that are married to flooring installers and company owners. And that's, when does this episode properly air? Third week of June? July 19th. My wife will once again be taking over the show for the 200th episode. I'll probably get dragged under a bus again, so, look out for that episode. It's going to be a good one. All right, folks, that'll do it for us. We will catch you next week. Remember to learn while you earn.